She actually said that? My friend Will asked, not bothering to lower his voice as he stood in the kitchen archway, staring at me like I'd grown another head. I didn't blame him. Because yes, my wife of 18 years had just toasted me in front of a table of her wine-sipping, networking circle with, "It's a shame a real man doesn't own a beach house." She said it right after I told everyone I'd paid off our mortgage. Our house. The one I built equity in slowly. 3 jobs, skipped vacations, hand-washed the damn siding myself every spring. No second mortgage, no helic. Just grit. Just spreadsheets. And she laughed. She laughed, clinked her glass with her self-proclaimed branding mentor, and flashed those perfect veneers like she hadn't just castrated me in front of 6 strangers and 2 mutual friends. The room didn't go quiet, either. That's the part that really stuck with me. Nobody flinched. One woman even said, "Oh my God, stop, you're savage." Like my humiliation was just a charcuterie board to nibble between jokes about passive income and men who wear khakis unironically. I didn't argue, didn't flinch, just smiled like a man who forgot his anniversary and said, "Excuse me for a second." I left the oven on, which made no sense. We weren't cooking anything, but no one noticed. That's when it clicked. Not the betrayal. No, that had been calcifying for years. It was the permission. That moment was her green light. Her out-loud declaration that I no longer mattered in the equation. Just a placeholder. An old Toyota running fine until someone could afford a Tesla. So I left her there, mid-giggle, and walked home. Slow. I knew exactly what I was walking toward. Because the beach house jab wasn't her first. It was just her first public one. For months, I'd noticed how often she forgot to mention my name in her brand's origin story, how she started introducing herself as the sole homeowner to contractors, and how that side hustle of hers, home spa kits with imported oils and custom embroidery, had turned our entire guest house into a full-blown packaging center. Boxes, deliveries, freelancers coming and going, staged photo shoots in the front yard while I was at work. One time she moved my tools out of the garage so she could make space for a creative backdrop wall. That's when I checked the HOA bylaws. Section 7, Paragraph C. Residential properties shall not be used for commercial purposes unless expressly registered and approved by the board. Clear as daylight. She didn't just forget to register it. She'd laughed off the idea when I suggested it. "You're so paranoid. It's just some shipping. Everyone does it. Everyone doesn't get 5-star Yelp reviews from their house address." That night, after her performance, I sat at the desk she said was too ugly to be in frame, opened my secure drive, and finished the folder I'd been slowly curating for 6 months. I called it HOA Enforcement because I didn't need to be poetic, just precise. Photos, time-stamped, of deliveries. Videos from the doorbell cam showing clients arriving. The company's LLC registration conveniently showing our home address as the business HQ. Screenshots of reviews with our front gate in the background. Every link. Every invoice. Even the post she made bragging about our new line of sea salt exfoliants being mixed in our home studio. She posted it proudly, like her ego was too loud to read fine print. And the best part? The folder didn't just contain what she was doing. It contained when. Because timing matters. Especially when over 90% of people who listen to stories like this haven't subscribed. If you're one of them, hit that subscribe button. It keeps the team behind these stories motivated to keep going. Anyway, inside the folder was also a single-page scan of the HOA's fine schedule, $1,000 per violation, compounded monthly, plus forced tax reassessment in case of unlicensed business activity. The phrase legal owner appeared 8 times in bold. And at that moment, with her laughter still echoing in the back of my skull like the dying note of a cruel punchline, I knew exactly what I'd do. I wouldn't argue with her. I'd give her what she wanted. She wanted to own something? Fine. She could own all of it. It took exactly 7 days. Not out of hesitation, but coordination. During that week, I brewed her coffee just how she liked it. Oat milk, 2 pumps of sugar-free vanilla, glass mug, never ceramic. I even complimented her newest product photo with the fake eucalyptus and marble backdrop she'd staged in our powder room. She beamed, said I was finally getting it. Like I'd passed a test I never knew I'd been failing. I asked if she wanted to go over some estate planning stuff together. Told her I was thinking about our future. About her future, really. That got her attention. "Don't joke like that," she said. "You know I hate legal stuff." I didn't joke. I printed. The next morning, over chia pudding and a silence she didn't know how to read, I slid the folder across the kitchen island. Inside, notarized deed transfer documents. Every line prepared by her father's firm's favorite notary, an old golfing buddy who owed him a favor. Every detail, from parcel number to lien-free declaration, had been triple-checked. She looked at the papers, then back at me. "You're transferring the house to me? I want you to feel secure," I said. "You've done so much building this brand. I know I haven't always shown it, but I respect what you've done. I figured, this house, it should reflect that." Her mouth twisted in a suspicious little grin, like she thought I was finally surrendering. As if the weight of her ambition had broken me into a more agreeable version of myself. Not angry, just tired. A man who'd finally accepted his role as the less impressive one. She signed everything without a second read. When the notary asked her if she understood the implications of sole ownership, she actually giggled. Not out of nerves. Out of victory. He stamped it. Done. She kissed me on the cheek that night and joked, "Well, I guess I'm the man of the house now." I smiled. "Then I'll try not to leave the seat up." We even celebrated. She poured rose and made a toast to taking control of our destiny. She said the word our, but she meant hers. I didn't bother correcting her. I was already back at my desk, uploading digital copies of the paperwork into my secure cloud. The transfer date, notarized and recorded, now lived next to the HOA bylaws and the photo of her shipping 10 spa deluxe kits, with our street address taped to each box. And to make sure everything lined up, I timestamped the upload with a system log, verified against my VPN and firewall log history. Redundant? Maybe. But it wouldn't be the first time she claimed she didn't remember how something happened. The next morning, she told her branding group she finally owned her space. Called it her empowerment moment. Even posted a little reel of herself unlocking the front door with a caption, "When your husband finally admits you're the boss." I liked that one. I saved it. Because what she didn't know was that the moment she posted that video, she documented a false timeline. She had claimed ownership for years, but now she had evidence that she only truly owned it starting that day. Any business activity before that, all the revenue, photos, statements, it had all occurred while I was legally the sole owner. I had no obligation to disclose her use. But now it was all hers. All violations, past and future, would attach directly to her. You see, it's not enough to leave a sinking ship. Sometimes, the real power is quietly reassigning the insurance and making sure the hole in the hull becomes someone else's problem. It was almost impressive how little she noticed. For someone so obsessed with optics, lighting, filters, the perfect natural glow, she never once looked up. Not at the corner of the garage where I'd mounted the second camera under the eaves. Not at the HOA notice we got last winter about updated surveillance placement for neighborhood safety. Not at the way the lawn service guys started waving at her a little too politely, like they were watching a show but couldn't say they had front row seats. Every Saturday, like clockwork, her client visits started around 10. 2 women in athleisure and designer sunglasses would arrive with their iced coffees, parked slightly over the curb. She'd scream at me if I ever did that, and roll in wheeled suitcases like they were heading to a conference. They weren't. They were here for brand mentoring sessions. Sometimes they stayed for hours, sometimes minutes. The pattern didn't matter. What mattered was they were paying her. And she was using her home now, technically, as a place of business. Of course, she didn't register it. No signage. No licenses. Just vibes. She once told me, "The best part of my job is I don't need to follow the old rules. My brand is the rule." I remember nodding and refilling my coffee, pretending I hadn't just heard her admit to breaking multiple zoning laws over avocado toast. By now, she had softbox lights in the living room and a foldable white archway blocking the fireplace for clean shoots. Our garage had been turned into a mailroom. Bins of her spa kits, jars of sea salt, containers of lavender oil from Portugal, or wherever her supplier was this week. The hallway outside the guest bath always reeked of lemongrass. I'd mentioned it once. She told me I was insensitive to her creative space. What she didn't know, what she never even asked, was why I'd insisted we upgrade our home network security 3 months ago. Why I had to drill into the wall behind the pantry. Why I installed a locked panel under the breaker box. Or why I kept a second router, tucked inside the garage ceiling tiles, running independent cloud backups. The truth was simple. The cameras weren't just mine. Some of them were theirs. The HOA had installed new units at the end of our cul-de-sac, angled perfectly to catch the driveway, garage entry, and side gate. I knew because I helped them pick the angles. We had a break-in 2 years ago, just a kid trying to steal a bike. It gave me the perfect excuse. I told the board I was a tech guy, not untrue, and I'd be happy to consult on placement and range testing. What they didn't know? I kept my own archive. Motion detected, time-stamped, locally mirrored, and anonymized. No faces, no names, just labeled files. Vehicle arrival, March 6 to 10:03 a.m. Delivery pickup, April 9 to 2:17 p.m. Client enters through side gate, May 14 to 11:42 a.m. Each one was under 60 seconds. Each one burned onto a pristine USB stick, numbered, sealed, and mailed via express courier to the HOA board president's law office, care of a P.O. box. No fingerprints, no return address, no handwriting. Just a note. Business activity suspected. Enclosed, visual confirmation of possible violations. Property, her name, dates, listed in file metadata. I never said she was running an illegal business. I didn't have to. I just let the images speak. And while she was giddy over her new product launch, Spa Summer Nights bundles with bonus eye mask, I was watching her video shoot from my phone, remote accessed from the attic cam. I could see the tripod, the girls in matching robes, the champagne flutes. One of them even held up a sign, Boss Energy Only. She was building her empire, one scrub jar at a time. And I was laying brick after brick of her collapse. Because when the storm comes, it's not the flash that brings the damage. It's the foundation you never reinforced. And I had every blueprint. It was the kind of envelope that doesn't waste time with branding, just white, thick, and blunt. The front was stamped in red block letters. Urgent. HOA compliance notice. No fluff. No marketing copy. Just a warning dressed as stationery. I found it on the hallway console, unopened, next to a half-drunk protein shake and a sticky note that said, "Order more rose quartz." I didn't touch it. Didn't need to. The weight alone told me it had attachments. Probably photos. Maybe even one of the USB clips they'd printed and included for reference. I let it sit. She came home around 4 p.m., sunglasses on indoors, iced tea in one hand, Bluetooth earbuds in the other, voice dictating what sounded like a product tagline. Clean skin, clear spirit. Don't just glow, radiate. She paused when she saw the envelope. Ugh. HOA drama. Again. That was rich. Last time she spoke to the board was 2 years ago, and only to complain about leaf debris from neighbor trees ruining her aesthetic. But now, suddenly, she was a battle-hardened veteran of community governance. She opened it standing up, posture all theater, like she expected a form letter about mailbox paint or lawn edging. Instead, she read the first line aloud. Dear homeowner, pursuant to Section 7C of the Community Bylaws, your property has been cited for multiple unregistered commercial activities. Her brow furrowed. She flipped the page. Formal hearing scheduled for the 18th. Review of footage provided by community security, subject to fines up to $5,000 per infraction, and potential forced property reassessment under county business zoning guidelines. Her jaw twitched. This is ridiculous. They've never said anything before. I looked up from my laptop. Maybe someone noticed recently. She turned toward me like I'd just confessed to setting the place on fire. Who? What kind of neighbor would do this? I've never bothered anyone. I didn't reply, just gave her a sympathetic nod, the kind you give someone who's 5 minutes away from realizing they're not being pranked. She stormed off into her office and emerged 10 minutes later, phone in hand, cheeks red with purpose. She went live. Not a prepared reel. Not a polished brand update. Live. Hey guys, so I wasn't going to say anything, but I just got this hilarious little warning from our HOA, she began, shaking the envelope in front of the camera. Apparently, someone in our very supportive community decided to snitch because they're clearly threatened by a woman actually doing something with her life. She didn't stop there. The best part? They're saying I need to register my home spa kits like I'm running a strip mall out of my backyard. Please. I've seen what Susan does with her Etsy wreaths. But go off, I guess. Her followers ate it up. Hearts and emojis flew up the side of the screen. Someone commented, "Jealous haters. You're doing amazing, babe." She smiled. "Thank you. I am doing amazing. And no one, not even some bored HOA dinosaur, is going to scare me into silence." Click. The video went viral in her circle. She pinned it to her profile with the caption, "When women win, the petty people panic." I downloaded the full stream, stripped the metadata, archived the audio, added it to the folder. Why? Because her own words would now become evidence of noncompliance. Her mocking tone, her admission of unregistered commerce, her timeline, all in her own voice, all now technically public admission of continued violations after formal notice was served. She didn't know the HOA board president was already watching, or that the snitch she kept referencing had no name, no trace. Just a digital trail too clean to follow. She thought she was defending herself. In reality, she'd just handed them a signed confession, wrapped in ring lights and smugness. Let her gloat. Let her feed her algorithm. Because the deeper she dug into her own bravado, the better the footage looked in grayscale, with timestamps and headers marked Exhibit B. She wasn't documenting her freedom. She was sealing her audit. It started small. A few more cars on the block than usual, the HOA golf cart parked across the street for hours on end, the landscaping crew oddly chatty as they trimmed the median for the third time that week. All the little signs of something brewing. But she didn't notice. Or rather, she noticed but misread it. "Babe, I think people are just jealous," she said one morning while layering serums under her makeup. Like, not everyone can turn a backyard into a business. I'm inspiring them. That's probably why they're watching. She called it a case study in resilience. I called it denial. The real shift came 3 days after her viral rant. That's when the second envelope arrived. This one wasn't white. It was tan, legal-sized, with the county seal printed in raised ink across the corner. Office of the Assessor and Taxation. It sat there on the kitchen island next to her matcha kit, waiting for a hand brave enough to open it. I found it first. Didn't touch it. Just stared at it for a moment. Then made myself a quiet cup of black coffee and left for the gym. When I came back an hour later, she was already pacing. "You didn't open this?" she asked, holding the envelope like it was radioactive. "Nope." She ripped it open, scanned the contents, then sat down so quickly the bar stool scraped across the tile like a scream. "What does it say?" I asked, leaning on the counter. She didn't answer at first, just kept rereading it, lips moving, eyes darting. Finally, "It's something about reassessment. They're saying we triggered a change in property classification due to ongoing commercial use." I kept my face neutral. "Oh, and there are penalties? Retroactive ones." "Strange," I said. "You filed a business license with the county, right?" She blinked like I'd just asked if she breathed oxygen. "No, I mean, I have the LLC. That's federal. That's not the same thing." "Well, nobody told me I had to do all that. It's a home business." I sipped my coffee. "So's a meth lab, technically." Her face went white. "I'm kidding," I said. "Sort of." She got up and started rifling through drawers, muttering about calling someone. Maybe a cousin who knows tax stuff. Maybe her brand mentor's accountant. But it was the first time I saw something close to doubt on her face. The sharp edges of her confidence dulled. That envelope listed 3 years of back tax exposure. It included an estimated reassessment value and a provisional penalty schedule. What it didn't include, but I knew they'd already prepared, was the summary of her revenue stream. That would come later, after the audit. After the compliance team subpoenaed her payment processors and connected the dots between the Instagram storefront, her Etsy listings, and the Zelle payments from clients labeled things like Glow Up Sesh and Vibe Consult. I didn't have to report her income. She'd already done that herself, publicly, enthusiastically, on every platform available. She once bragged in a caption about earning 6 figures from my couch. I had the screenshot. But what triggered the audit wasn't her ego. It was the anonymous tip. An envelope just like hers, except that one I did send. Short and efficient. "To whom it may concern, a residential property under your jurisdiction appears to be in violation of zoning and tax regulations based on its ongoing use as an unlicensed commercial facility. Enclosed are relevant visuals and public records. No return address. Just a single word typed in the bottom corner. Documented." And I had. Every step. Every delivery. Every shoot. So as she paced the living room with that notice in her hand, still muttering, still pretending it could all be explained away, I sat calmly and opened my laptop. Because here's what she didn't understand yet. This wasn't a campaign. It was a pressure system. And it was only just beginning to tighten. She called her father the way people call the fire department. Fast, loud, and certain someone else is responsible for the flames. I was upstairs when I heard her on speakerphone, storming through the living room like she was delivering a closing argument in a courtroom she invented. "They're trying to ruin me, Dad. First the HOA, then the county, and now they're threatening reassessment? For what? Running a few packages out of the garage? This is harassment." Her father, Leonard, had always considered himself a solutions guy. He was the kind of man who answered questions with other, louder questions, usually ending in "you understand me?" A retired insurance litigation attorney who wore his golf handicap like a military rank. He didn't like me. Never had. Thought I was too quiet to be trustworthy. Now, apparently, I'd become the enemy in his daughter's war. He didn't call that night, or the next, but on the second morning, just after 9 a.m., my phone buzzed. I was outside, pruning the rosemary bush she once told me was too rustic for the front yard vibe. I'd left it anyway. Now I was cutting it back with a small pair of clippers when his name lit up the screen. Leonard G. Murray, mobile. I let it ring twice, then answered, calm as ever. Leonard. Cut the bullshit, he snapped. I've seen the notices. The property's in trouble. I'm getting you a lawyer. This is your house too, and if they're going after her, you're going down with her. I let the silence linger for a beat. Then another. No, I'm not. There was a pause. The sound of papers shuffling. What are you talking about? I transferred the deed. To her. Entirely. Another pause, shorter this time. You did that. Of course. I did it weeks ago. Well, before any violations were flagged. He exhaled. Hard. You transferred the house. Before all this. Correct. To her name only? Yep. Full legal title. Notarized. Recorded. I could practically hear the blood drain from his face. You son of a... Leonard, I said gently. Check the deed. It's public record. You'll see the date. Clear as day. There was a click. No goodbye. No threat. Just silence, as if he'd just hung up on a ghost. Or maybe become one. I slid the phone back into my pocket and kept trimming the rosemary. The sun was finally out. The bush smelled sharp and clean. Inside the house, I heard drawers opening and closing. Her footsteps up the stairs. Then down again. Cabinets, files, the linen closet for some reason. She was looking for something, anything, that would let her reverse what I'd done. She found nothing. Around noon, she cornered me in the kitchen. Her makeup was smudged, her eyes frantic. You gave it to me on purpose? I sipped my water and looked at her. You knew this would happen? I didn't make it happen, but I knew what could. She staggered back a step, like the floor had shifted. You set me up. I tilted my head. You wanted to own it. Now you do. She stormed out, keys in hand. I didn't follow. Didn't need to. Because somewhere across town, her father was staring at the county timestamp on the property deed and realizing the full weight of what I'd done. Not just the gift of a house. The gift of liability. And all of it, every cent of the fines, fees, and reassessments, was now legally, immutably, hers. Not mine. Not ours. Just hers. Because timing isn't just about getting ahead. It's about letting someone else step directly into the path of a train, right after you hand them the tracks. He called again that evening. This time, he didn't yell. His voice was lower, heavier, like it had been sanded down by the sharp edge of panic. There's a video, son. I didn't answer. Just waited. There's a goddamn video of people pulling into the driveway. Of her clients. There are shipments. Boxes. Timestamps. Aerial shots from the HOA cams. And the county's got records now. Of income. Transfers. You knew all this. I did. Silence. The sound of a shaky breath through his nose. And you gave her the house after? I did. He hung up. No threat. No insult. Just a cold, frightened disconnect. Like a man who just realized the fire was already halfway through the floorboards and he'd been screaming at a smoke detector. I stood in the kitchen for a while, letting the silence return to its normal shape. Outside, dusk was starting to fold over the lawn, and the rosemary I'd trimmed earlier still clung to my fingers. She came home a little after 8. Not storming this time. No purse slam. No stomping heels. She moved slow, as if afraid the house itself might turn against her. Her makeup was gone. Eyes raw. Shoulders sunk into themselves. She didn't even make it all the way inside. Just collapsed against the doorway like her bones had gone soft. The half-light from the porch casting long shadows over her face. I didn't know it was that serious. I stayed seated, elbows on the table, not even turning fully toward her. They're saying it's fraud now. Like, real fraud. Leonard says if they push this to civil court, the IRS gets involved. I could lose everything. I said nothing. She slid down the wall until she was sitting on the floor, legs stretched out like a child who'd been sent to time out, but didn't understand the rules anymore. Why didn't you tell me? It came out cracked, like a word held too long in the back of her throat. Not angry, not even self-righteous anymore. Just broken. I looked at her, studied her face. And for a split second, I saw the girl I'd met 20 years ago. Before the rebrands. Before the ring lights and the luxury hustle. Back when her ambition hadn't yet turned into a guillotine she was building for someone else. You wanted to own it, I said softly. Now you do. Her eyes filled. She shook her head slowly, whispering something I couldn't make out, probably to herself, or maybe to the last version of me she thought she could manipulate. I stood and walked past her toward the back hallway, flicking off lights as I went. She didn't follow, because that was the moment she realized the paper trail didn't start with one mistake. It started with a decision. Her decision. To mock. To ignore. To build without permits. To laugh at the man who built her foundation. And the paper trail? It was miles long, with her name on every page. What was once ours had been stripped clean of shared fingerprints. The business. The house. The debt. The moment she signed those papers, she stopped being my problem. Now she was the county's, the board's, the state's, and soon, maybe even the feds. Funny how fast a dream house becomes a liability when the deed matches the fraud. She wore white to the hearing. Not cream, not beige, white. Like she was stepping into a wellness retreat instead of a disciplinary tribunal. Oversized sunglasses, that silk-wrapped ponytail she saves for product shoots, and a beige designer tote with her initials monogrammed in gold. No lawyer, no folder, no laptop, just her phone and that same entitled smirk she wore when she told me. Honestly, babe, it's just a formality. I'm not going to waste $300 an hour on some bloodsucker. She figured it'd be a 10-minute slap on the wrist, maybe a warning, and some eye rolls from a few retired HOA board members with too much time on their hands. She figured wrong. The boardroom was cold, literally and figuratively. Oak-paneled walls. A U-shaped table facing a projector screen. 5 chairs filled by people she'd never bothered to learn the names of. One was the president, retired attorney, quiet, eyes sharp like a hawk who's seen too many rats pretend to be doves. Next to him sat the property manager, the treasurer, the security liaison, and a county zoning liaison she'd never met. They didn't ask her to speak at first. They just played footage. 37 seconds of a woman in yoga pants unloading branded boxes from the back of a rental SUV. Timestamped. Street view clearly showing the house number. A second clip, her ushering 2 clients through the side gate with ring lights and camera gear. Another one, her voice, clear as crystal, recorded from the HOA street cam mic. You can just Venmo me directly. Don't worry about the invoice. Then the documents. They displayed a slide titled, Sequence of Business Activity. Underneath, dates, screenshots, links to public listings, archived posts, even one caption where she said, all products are hand-prepped from my personal studio. Then came the slide that broke her face. Title transfer deed, filed date. Filed before the HOA's first formal inquiry. Filed after a dozen recorded business transactions. Filed just in time to legally shift all existing liabilities into her name, without the prior owner, me, being accountable for zoning or business use violations. The board president cleared his throat. Given the volume of documented activity, the public nature of the admissions, and the strategic timing of the title transfer, this board is recommending escalation to legal counsel for potential civil fraud exposure. She didn't breathe for a few seconds. This is ridiculous, she finally said. But her voice was too high, too cracked. I run a small business, like half the women on my block. That may be true, the treasurer said, without looking up. But none of them listed their unlicensed spa products on national e-commerce platforms using an address under community oversight. And none of them transferred ownership of the property right before our audit began. Are you accusing me of evading something? We're documenting evidence of intent, said the president. The risk profile now falls under civil fraud consideration. Whether that becomes criminal will depend on how the county decides to proceed. She blinked. I didn't mean. We'll take a short recess. They stood. She didn't. Just sat there, stunned, one hand on the table like she was afraid she might fall through it. When the room cleared, she fumbled for her phone and called me. Once, twice, 3 times. The 4th time, she left a voicemail. I never listened to it. Instead, I tapped block contact. No drama, no confrontation, just a single tap, and she vanished from my screen the way I had from her priorities. She thought she was walking into a petty spat with HOA busybodies. She walked into a tribunal that already had her confession, her footage, and her paper trail, hand-delivered, bound, and sealed. For years, she built her empire on packaging and illusion. But now, she was sitting alone at a cold table, watching it all get unpacked. Systematically, publicly. And this time, she wasn't the one doing the unboxing. The envelope was heavier than the others. Not just thick, weighted, It landed on the doormat like a gavel, stamped with the county seal in raised foil and a return address that made her breath hitch the second she saw it. Department of Revenue and Assessment Services. She stared at it for an hour. Didn't touch it. Just hovered like a bomb technician trying to guess the countdown. Her followers didn't see that part. On her socials, it was light detoxing and boundary work. In reality, she was curled on the couch in silence, trying to convince herself it might just be a notification, not a calculation. Eventually, she opened it. I was out back, tending to the hedges she used to call boring filler. I heard the tearing sound through the screen door, followed by the quiet gasp of someone finally stepping off a cliff they've been dancing on for months. I didn't go inside. I didn't have to. She stood there for 20 minutes, frozen, as if rereading the same words would somehow cause them to change. That paper didn't just contain numbers. It contained the disintegration of every illusion she'd built. Property tax reassessed at commercial use rates. Retroactive, 3 years. Penalties for failure to register a business address with the county. Accumulated interest for unpaid commercial zoning surcharges. The final number? Enough to erase her entire business account, and then some. The account she proudly declared in a podcast interview last year had 6 months of runway, and then a cushion. Gone. The county had already contacted the bank. Funds were frozen pending audit. Payment options were listed in all caps. The consequences of inaction were bolded. Lien processing initiated. She called her father. Speakerphone again. I only caught her side of the conversation, but I could tell exactly when the yelling started. Daddy, I don't know what to do. They're saying I owe. Like, real money. I don't even understand some of these terms. This wasn't supposed to. A pause. Then louder. But he gave me the house. He said it was a gift. I thought. Silence. And then I heard it. His voice. Cracked. Furious. You're the owner, Mallory. You signed everything. Your name is on every goddamn document. What were you thinking? Her reply was barely a whisper. He said it was a gift. His voice dropped to something colder. It was a trap, idiot. She didn't hang up. He did. And she just stood there, shoulders shaking, letter trembling in one hand, the other still clutching her phone like it might magically undo the paper in front of her. I watched through the reflection on the microwave door as she slowly sank to the floor, the marble tile unforgiving against her knees. Not sobbing, just hollow. That was when the truth finally set in. This wasn't an accident, not a misunderstanding, not a setback she could brand her way out of with a new podcast episode on resilience and grace. This was engineered, deliberate, designed, and she knew now that I'd never raised my voice, never thrown a plate, never stormed out or begged for attention, because I didn't need to. I had time to track, to document, to build something stronger than outrage, a sequence. And now, that sequence had become an avalanche, and she was the only one buried in it. Every post, every receipt, every clip, folded into letters with her name at the top and a dollar sign she couldn't control at the bottom. She once said, owning something changes everything. She was right, because now, she owned all of it. She came to my office just before lunch. No call, no warning, no calendar ping. Just walked in like she still had access, like the locks hadn't changed. The receptionist didn't even stop her. Maybe she saw something in her face, panic dressed in the remains of dignity. I looked up from my desk and saw her standing there. Red eyes, cracked mascara under one, blazer off center, blouse wrinkled like she hadn't slept in it so much as lost a war in it. You ruined me, she said, no inflection. Not a shout, not even a tremble. Just the blunt impact of someone stating a fact they didn't understand until it hit them full speed. I didn't answer at first, just tilted my head slightly and gestured to the chair across from me. She didn't sit. You ruined me, she repeated, a little louder this time. The house, the business, everything. You planned this. I met her eyes. Finally. No, I said. You planned it. You just didn't think the fine print mattered. She flinched. I saw the words land. I paid off our house. I added, slow and even. And you raised a glass and said a real man would own a beach house. Her mouth opened, but the apology got caught in her throat, tangled in pride and ashes. I didn't mean it, she muttered. I did. I reached into my drawer and pulled out the brochure I'd been holding on to. Not for show, not for drama, just because I was actually looking. Coastal properties. Pages full of wide decks, ocean views, high-impact windows, and neighbors who didn't stage candlelit eucalyptus shoots in their driveway. I slid it across the table toward her. I'm looking at beachfront now, I said, but I'm doing it alone. That cracked her. Not the IRS notices, not the frozen accounts, not even her father cutting off his legal team and telling her she was on her own. This was the moment the collapse stopped feeling technical and started feeling personal. I stood, buttoned my blazer, and walked past her toward the door. No monologue, no parting shot, just the same silence I'd carried through every breakfast while she pitched new ventures and explained why her time was now too valuable to be domestic. As I passed her, her phone buzzed in her pocket. Another email. She didn't need to look to know who it was from. The subject line was visible. IRS. Final filing reminder / immediate action required. She didn't open it. She didn't move. She just slowly lowered herself into the chair I'd offered her minutes ago, the brochure still on the table, untouched, open to a page titled, Live Where the Waves Don't Ask Permission. She stared at it like it was a mirror. Because what finally broke her wasn't the tax bill. It wasn't the boardroom humiliation or the county audit or her own father's disgust. It was the quiet, the complete absence of begging, arguing, or revenge speeches. She finally saw it for what it was. I hadn't ruined her. She'd handed me the match, poured the gas, and laughed while she danced barefoot on the fuse. I just let her light it. And then I stepped away, slowly, calmly, on sand that was never going to be hers.